They tell you to beg. They tell you to chase. They tell you that if you really loved her, you'd jump at her call. But when I went silent, truly silent, there was no scramble, no second chance, no I'm sorry fast enough to save what was already dead. I went no contact. I severed the cord, and she came back begging. Here's how it went down. I remember the exact moment I decided to vanish. It wasn't a grand speech or a dramatic exit. It was a simple text. I need space. No follow-up. No apology. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and watched her 3 blue ticks fade into nothing. It felt like ripping a Band-Aid off a wound that never stopped bleeding. My chest tightened, my mind raced, but I didn't waver. Because every message I'd sent before this moment ended in me praying for scraps. I was tired of living like a dog, begging for approval. Before that day, my life revolved around her whim. If she wanted to talk at 2 a.m., I answered. If she ghosted for 3 days, I justified it, telling myself she had a crazy week. If she said, I love you 1 minute and slammed the door in my face the next, I patched my broken heart and waited for her call. I apologized for things I didn't do. I hid my pain behind jokes. I drowned in her mixed signals like a man who forgot how to breathe on his own. The first week of no contact felt like drowning in air. My living room became my interrogation room. Furniture felt too close, the silence too loud. I reached for my phone as if expecting it to vibrate with her name, but every time I caught myself, I forced my hand to drop. I deleted our entire chat, blocked her on social media, and erased any trace of her from my digital world. Each click felt like a hammer striking my own chains. Painful, necessary, irreversible. I lost sleep. I lost appetite. I fantasized about her scanning my clogged inbox and realizing her mistake, but I never typed her name again. I refused to give her another moment of power. I learned in those crushing hours that no contact isn't cowardice, it's the most brutal act of self-preservation you can commit. Then the messages started. At first, just a text that popped up and vanished. Can we talk? I stared at the notification for a full minute, my heart thundering like a drum. My thumb hovered over read, then I let the phone lie face down. I refused to feed her need for instant closure. Because real closure isn't a 5-minute conversation. It's a choice you make when you no longer beg to be understood. She tried again. I'm sorry. I screwed up. God, I could hear her voice in those words, fragile, trembling, coated in regret. I wanted to answer. I wanted to say, I've missed you so fucking much. But I didn't. I knew her apologies were cheap pills she popped to numb her own guilt. I watched her messages go unread. She waited for me to break, but I was already rebuilding. 3 weeks in, I found out she told mutual friends I was unreasonable for not replying. He just won't give me a chance, she said. That cut deep, because she tried to paint my silence as stubbornness. But here's the real cut. I was done letting her paint me as weak. I'd been weak for too long. I was ready to be the man she and everyone else thought I'd never become. Then one evening, the doorbell rang. I sighed, expecting a FedEx package. Instead, she stood there, her makeup streaked, clothes rumpled, like she'd sprinted straight from a nightmare. I need you, she said. Her voice cracked. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She thought she was delivering a redemption arc, but to me, she was handing over the last page of her story, one I refused to read. When she dropped to her knees begging, I felt something break inside me, some lingering part that still wanted her to say, I love you. But I swallowed back that fucking hailstorm of emotion. Instead, I said calmly, why should I trust you now? Her tears fell harder. Because I can't live without you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I recognized every excuse she spat, fear, loneliness, regret. She tried to bargain. I'll move out of town, I'll quit my job, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I told her, show me, not tomorrow, right now. She scrambled, offered to log out of her social media and to pull every friend out of her inner circle if I named them. She promised to go to therapy, to cut ties with the people who poisoned us. All of it sounded like a performance, because I knew how easily she could pretend. I'd watched her rewrite history before, spin lies until they sounded like truths. She dipped her hands in the well of my affection and pulled out nothing but illusions. She begged, I'll change. I swear, I've already started. I'm different. I looked at her, bloodshot and trembling, and I saw something new, desperation as her last lifeline. I stood over her, the man she'd broken once, offering her a mirror. But instead of pity, I gave her a choice. Prove it or leave. This isn't a game. She sobbed. Please. I turned my back. Her sobs were like nails on a chalkboard, nagging at the fragile line between my old self and this new version I was forging. I opened the front door and she stayed there, crying on my doorstep while I walked away. I spent that night awake, listening to the sound of my own steady breath. In the past, I would have questioned myself. Did I do the right thing? Did I hurt her too much? But that night felt different. I realized I wasn't the same man who'd cowered at her feet. I was someone who refused to be collateral damage in someone else's guilt trip. I was free, and she was the one trapped by her own mistakes. I started rebuilding my life. I went back to the gym and pushed myself harder than ever before, not to become someone she'd fawn over, but to prove to myself that I could endure hard work, even when my heart felt too heavy. I reconnected with old friends I'd abandoned, made plans I'd canceled because I was too busy worshiping her absence. I learned that my world didn't stop spinning just because she insisted on walking away. If anything, the world was wider, brighter, and more alive without her shadow looming over me. A month later, she reached out again, this time begging for answers, begging on her knees, begging like a woman who'd finally tasted the bitterness of her own mistakes. But the man I'd become didn't beg for her forgiveness. He didn't kneel. He didn't open his heart on request. When she looked at me, tears streaming, I saw someone who had squandered what she could never replace. She realized that losing me meant losing a man who had learned his worth, and no amount of apologies could rewind the clock. So I walked past her once more. I locked my heart behind the door she'd slammed in my face months ago, and I felt something strange. Peace. Because silence in itself had become my most loyal ally. It never lied. It never tested me. It simply allowed me to hear my own truth. If this story resonates, if you've ever reached a point where you knew you had to vanish to save yourself, subscribe now to the Closure Club, because there's a brotherhood of men who refuse to be echoes of someone else's drama. Every week, I share real stories, raw truths, and hard-hitting advice for men who are done being manipulated by love. We don't sugarcoat. We don't give out excuses. We offer clarity, strength, and the power to rebuild yourself. One silent step at a time. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and join us. Let your silence become your fiercest weapon. Tonight, remember this. When you go no contact, you reclaim your power. And when she comes back begging, you get to decide if her request is worth breaking your silence. Because the man who stops chasing is the man who becomes unstoppable.